Welcome into Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today on the show, Pro Football Talk has high praise for the Falcons. Now what? And maybe the bottom is better. It's all next. It's Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Hittin Hard is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We ask you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Get the latest episodes of Hittin Hard as soon as they become available. Check us out on the Sirius XM app as well, and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. So I was watching a video on Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio and Chris Sims, and they were discussing best positional groups and things like that in the NFL. And they brought up an interesting number that the Atlanta Falcons ran for more yards out of their running backs than any team in the NFL last year. So take away quarterbacks, because again, the Falcons finished third overall in rushing. They were only 2 yards away from finishing second. But the Bears finished number 1, no surprise with Justin Fields. The Ravens finished 2, no surprise with Lamar Jackson. But when you take away quarterback rushing yards, the Falcons were number 1 in rushing out of the running back, or I don't want to say this too loud to Arthur Smith, that position. Because again, we're not going with positions and things like that this year. So Mike Florio said that the best running back group in the entirety of the NFL this year is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. When you look at Cordero Patterson, Tyler Algier, and now you add Bijan Robinson into that mix, he said they're going to be the best running back room in the NFL. Now, that's kind of high praise. I mean, again, we don't often lead the league or have these kinds of bouquets heaped on the Atlanta Falcons. And, you know, again, say what you will about Mike Florio, but, I mean, I think they run a good website. Chris Sims had the Jets, so he just had to be a knucklehead, right? Like, he was, the Jets will be – I think the Jets are going to be – okay, come on, man. Just don't – why you got to be a goofball, okay? Why you got to be the goofball? But, you know, again, and I know it's going to be positionless football. And, look, I'm excited to see where Bijan Robinson, how much and we're going to talk about this more tomorrow, but just – how much he's going to line up at different positions on the football field. That's the thing I'm interested in. Not that he's going to line up elsewhere. How much is he going to line up? But he talked about the idea, Mike Florio, I should say, pronouns, pal. Mike Florio talked about the idea of with Patterson and Algier and Bijan Robinson, the depth is there. And it doesn't matter how many carries these guys get or everything like that. Running behind that offensive line, there's going to be plenty of production and plenty of carries to go around for all of these guys, right? Because I don't think still that they're going to overwork or what I want to say, that they're not going to put too much pressure on Desmond Ridder to throw the football around. Will they throw it more? Yeah, they were like second to last in the NFL in passing attempts. Again, I expect them to throw it a little bit more, and especially without Marcus Mariota, but they're still not going to be a chuck it all around team. They're still not going to be Matt Ryan with 600 pass attempts. Like, that's not going to happen right now. So again, not factoring in the quarterback, you look at what Mike Florio said, the best running back room in the NFL is the Atlanta Falcons. And there's no reason to think that, again, with the running and the receiving that's available out of all of these guys. And look, they may have all 3 of those guys on the field at one time, where Patterson's split out wide, Bijan is in the slot, Algier is behind the quarterback, and they may have all 3 of those guys in the offense at one time. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch all of the things that these running backs are going to be able to do, and to think about all of the different ways that they're going to use all of these players. Again, I think that we'll see more Patterson at wide receiver in a more traditional kind of wide receiver, whether that's split out, slot, whatever. I think we're going to see him more than lining up behind the quarterback and running single back or out of the I formation or what have you. I think he's going to be a lot more involved in the pass game than even the run game. And we know Bijan Robinson is positionless football. He's going to have a lot of attempts in the passing game, going to be throwing the ball a lot, and obviously splitting him out in the slot, whatever. And then you're going to have that home run hitter in Robinson. And then you combine that with Tyler Algier, who will catch some passes out of the backfield. No doubt about it. I mean, he's definitely going to catch some passes out of there, but he's probably at going to end up being your main running threat when all is said and done. And I've said before, look, I think there's a definite chance that the Falcons could have 2 1,000-yard rushers. Now, they've done that in the past. They did that when they had Warrick Dunn and Michael Vick. And most of the time, it's been done, in the old days where running the football was a lot more of a premium, right? Larry Zonka and Mercury Morris, Rocky Blyer and Franco Harris. Like, that's usually where you've gotten that from. I think I want to say Ron Dane and Tiki Barber or something like that was another one. But, again, when it's been these teams, Ingram and Lamar, Michael Vick and Warrick Dunn, a lot of times here lately, it's been when you combine it with the quarterback's rushing yards. But I think the Falcons could really legitimately have 2 1,000-yard rushers when all is said and done. We've talked about this. There's no reason why they can't get the number of carries, the yards per carry, and all of those things to go along with it. So it was fun to, watch that and just, think about the idea of, hey, we might have the best running back room in the NFL, even though we're not going to call them running backs. And even though we don't play position football, I mean, again, but the idea of, we'll keep it amongst ourselves about the secrets that, again, that these group of guys has. But again, I'm excited to see the way they use Bijan Robinson. I'm excited to see the way they use Cordero Patterson. But certainly you think that, again, we have a plethora of guys in our backfield. And you saw Igwebuike, again, he had 70 yards in that game one. He might even be a guy that, barring an injury, again, and I don't root for injury or anything, but, again, guys are always getting hurt, and you're going to have other guys step up. This may be a guy that is a fourth running back, right? I mean, without Caleb Huntley, this may be a guy that's a fourth running back for this team, and he may even find himself called up at times if we have some injuries to our running back position. So you really feel good about where we're at, obviously, with this, and this is our bread and butter, and this is our backbone for what our identity is on our offense, running behind that really good offensive line, controlling the clock, running the football, don't put the ball too often in harm's way. But that's high praise from a Mike Florio to credit the Falcons with having the best running back room, even if goofball Chris Sims, has the Jets, for God's sakes, just criminally. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And listen, as we're heading toward week 1 of the regular season in the NFL, FanDuel's giving you a chance to win all season long. So right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, whatever team that is, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets every time they win a game during the regular season. You can use your bonus points on, or bonus bets on, spreads, player props, over-unders, everything under the table. So head to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON and start earning bonus bets today with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON and get in on the action today as NFL season is just about to happen. Well, we had this fear. We talked about this yesterday, last week, this, that, and the other. Matt Hennessy is going on season-ending IR. And that's kicking the phenoblies for a couple of reasons, okay? Look, we figure right now Matthew Bergeron is going to be now the de facto starter, okay? But I've talked about this on the show, on previous podcasts. What I'm not excited by is he has to be thrust in and we have to force him in, and that's how he's got to learn how to play guard. Because that was a disaster with Jalen Mayfield. Taking him from another position, plopping him in because of an injury, and all of a sudden we had to roll with it. And I don't like this at all. And my thing is, go get a guard. I don't care where you find him. Again, we just signed the Defensive Player of the Year in the USFL. Go find a guy, a veteran or somebody. Just what my fear is, and maybe Bergeron may end up being first team all NFL at guard. Okay. My fear is, though, we're forcing this on everything. And we're not left with any options. Kyle Hittin could play guard. That's not really a very good option, when all is said and done. But it's probably Bergeron's job to lose at this point. And that's the thing I have concerns about. I don't know where you find him. That's what, again, this is what Terry Fontenot's specialty is. Find free agents or guys in the NFL that can play. Not even so much college. His big thing was find capable NFL players to come into your franchise and succeed. That's what he was doing in New Orleans. Because, again, I have my concerns about forcing Matthew Bergeron into a situation, and we're going right back down the same road that we went with Jalen Mayfield, where injuries dictated Mayfield played out of position and was forced in and had to do what he had to do. And I know Bergeron's a good athlete and all stand there, but again, I wanted him to learn on his own time. I want him to get acclimated on his own. I wanted him to grow into that position and eventually take it over as a starter. I'm not saying he can't be the starter eventually for this team. I just don't like the idea of, okay, we got to force him in there now. And that's where we're at right now. It sucks for, Hennessy, because, again, if nothing else, that would have provided good competition. And at least, again, now, am I excited about the idea that I would have Matt Hennessy and Drew Dahlman side by side? No, I wasn't excited about that proposition. And certainly Bergeron's got the physicality and the size and everything like that. He's the bigger bodied guy, but he doesn't have the experience. And that's my concern. You can be as physical and dominant and all this kind of stuff, but if you don't have the experience and guys are taking advantage of you, not knowing, where to play. And again, people are like, oh, well, he'll be fine. This isn't beer league softball, folks. I know a lot of you out there in listener land think that this is, well, my buddy's been playing center field in our beer league softball. I've got an injury, a guy hurt. We'll just plug him in at third base and we'll just roll right along. And then y'all go out for wings and beer afterward. Not like that in the NFL. And yes, tackle to, again, use Jalen Mayfield, who is a tackle who ended up playing guard and was the worst interior offensive lineman in the NFL. Do I think Matthew Bergeron's going to be the worst interior offensive lineman? No, I don't think that. But I think that the idea of forcing him in because we have injuries and we don't have a better option, I hope that they learned from Jalen Mayfield. Even if you have to work Bergeron in over the first month of the season or what have you, that's a better option than game one, plug him right in, and he doesn't look back and hope for the best. Take that $9 or $10, $11 million that the Falcons have to spend and go out and find me somebody to be a guard. I'm not looking for an all-pro. Again, we went to the Super Bowl with Chris Chester playing guard. But we also, that year, made a trade to bring Andy Levitre in, who was a pretty good guard. Make a trade, sign somebody. Don't let this be the thing that hinders this team. I know Bergeron, with the style of offense that they have and what they're going to ask him to do, is probably going to be put in a more successful situation than what Jalen Mayfield was asked to be in. Because Matt was going to huck it around 600 times. And maybe that will be the difference out of all of this. But what my fear is that you're asking another guy to jump into a position, and it's Jalen Mayfield all over again. Not from an ability standpoint, but from the idea of Mayfield was forced into play guard because of injury at a position that he had never played before. That's the same thing that you're asking Bergeron. You're asking him to go down the same exact rabbit hole that Jalen Mayfield had to go on. And like I said, maybe Bergeron will pick this thing up and everything will be fine. But I don't want anything to derail this team, and certainly not derail the ability for Desmond Ridder to be a good quarterback, because he's going to end up with guys staring down his, ear hole. I don't want that for him. So again, go get me a guard. Get me somebody who can play. Get me somebody, trade, make a move, do something. Take our cap space and go get me a guy, Terry. I know he can do it. He could probably make a trade, but let's make sure that we don't go into another season where we're forcing a guy to have to play and start all year long because of injury, who might not be ready. I'm going to expect that we're going to see a big dose of Bergeron coming up tomorrow night against the Bungles when the starters are going to play, and we'll see what life in the NFL looks like for these guys. But again, it's not beer league softball. Your normal center fielder goes and plays third for a night. It doesn't work like that in the NFL. It's not that easy. You can go out for chicken wings and beer after the game, and it's, oh, well. It's not like that in the NFL. Hated for Hennessy, but now we'll see what happens, as Bergeron is probably being the de facto starter for this team. All right, as you listen in to Hittin' Hard, we want you to make sure that you go into whatever podcast platform that you're listening on. Let us know you're an everyday listener to the program. So we call them our everydayers. We thank you so much for being a part of our community, but let us know that you listen in 5 days a week into the show. So maybe the bottom's better. So the curious case of Michael Harris. So when Michael Harris has hit ninth this year, he's got 273 total plate appearances, hitting ninth in this lineup. He's actually hitting .303 with a .338 on base and a .504 slugging, an .842 OPS with 11 homers and 31 RBI. Oh, and by the way, he's got 44 runs scored in that position as well, with 10 steals. When he has hit in every other position in the lineup, he's hit second, he's hit fifth, he's hit sixth, he's hit seventh, and he's hit eighth. And when you look, eighth is the second most that he's hit in, seventh is the third most, second is now the third most position besides ninth. Again, ninth is number one, but after that, hitting second is the third most. And we figure that, with Ozzie out, we're going to get a big dose of Michael Harris hitting in that two hole, and especially against right-handed pitching, right? And look, I will say that I have been in favor of Michael Harris hitting in that two hole, giving you some left-handed pop, on base, hit for high average, and Ronnie and Michael Harris at the top of the order with all of that speed and the lefty-righty thing that Snitker likes. I thought that would be a natural fit. But when you look overall, Michael Harris, who's hit 303 in that 9th spot this year in 273 plate appearances. When you look at him hitting in every other spot in the order, he's only 19 for 85 with a 224 batting average, and he's hit no homers in any other spot in the lineup and only has 5 RBI with 8 runs scored. Now, again, I know that he's hit 3 times as often in that 9 hole as he has everywhere else. But you break it down in the 2 spot, 2 for 12 with no homers and an RBI. 3 for 12 in the 5th spot, 0 for 4 batting 6th, 7 for 28 in the 7th spot, and 7 for 29 in the 8th spot. So maybe the bottom is better. I mean, the numbers bear it out that he's got no homers, doesn't drive in runs, doesn't hit for average, doesn't get on base in anywhere but the 9 spot. And for a guy who I profiled as the prototypical number 2 hitter, where he's got speed, on base, power, he can hit in that 2 hole, hit right behind Ronnie, and he'll have plenty of opportunity to drive, the best leadoff hitter in baseball, in a number of times. But maybe it's better that he hits down there. And maybe that gives Ronnie an opportunity to drive in Michael Harris. We talked about the idea of the 7, 8, 9 hitters have been so important and so key for this team this year because they keep that lineup turning over. They keep turning over and turning over and turning over the lineup to where Ronnie and Ozzie and Riley and Olsen, or all of those guys, the bashers, get all these extra at-bats. Again, you're going 7 for 14. You're turning that lineup over, brother. Instead of being 0 for 12 at the bottom of your order, and guys aren't getting as many opportunities. And obviously, listen, say what you want about Michael Harris, but when he's hit in that 9 spot, he's flourished down there. And if moving forward, as crazy as it may sound, and again, we'll see, everybody talked about Ronnie and how he adjusted to hitting in the leadoff spot, and I always wanted him in a more run-producing spot. But leadoff has obviously been where he's flourished. Maybe Michael Harris will flourish at the bottom of the order. Maybe he's a guy that flourishes hitting in the 9 spot, where it doesn't feel like you have pressure, and you're going to get plenty of opportunity to see good pitches because you've got the best leadoff hitter and the best player in the National League hitting directly in front of you. So I guess I'm going to be okay long-term if Michael Harris, and this is kind of contrary to baseball thought, that, well, he's going to stay in the 9 spot the rest of his career. Not because he can't field, not because he can't hit and can't produce, but because he does produce in that spot. And so while I wanted Ronnie 1, Michael Harris 2, that duo back-to-back, maybe it's Michael Harris 9, Ronnie 1. I still get them back-to-back. I just flip-flopped it. But I definitely think that there is an opportunity to have a bunch of runs scored, home runs, obviously. And right now, he's kind of flourishing in that 9 spot. It will be interesting to see, again, when Olsen moved down in the order, his numbers took off. Michael Harris sitting in that 9 spot is flourishing. And there's an old saying that says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Maybe that's the spot where Michael Harris feels most comfortable. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, we'll see over the years and things like that. But maybe he feels most comfortable hitting there. It worked for Ronnie. And I'm still going to get those guys back to back. It's just the reverse order of the way I get them. But if Michael Harris is more comfortable hitting in the 9 spot, leave him down there. I wanted him at 2. I thought he was a prototypical 2-hole hitter. But if he's more comfortable hitting 9th and just churning that lineup over and getting more at-bats for Ronnie and Ozzie and Riley and everybody else, then just leave him down there and let him flourish. because his home runs and RBI and runs scored are all coming out of that 9 spot, and nowhere else he hits has produced the kind of numbers that he's given at the 9 spot. So let him stay down there, and maybe the bottom is better. All right, thank you so much for making Hittin' Hard your first listen. Be sure to go in and whatever podcast platform that you listen on, let us know you're an everyday listener to the program. We call them our everydayers, and we thank you so much for being a part of our community. You can check us out or follow for free on YouTube or subscribe on YouTube as well. Get the latest episodes of Hittin' Hard as soon as they become available. Also, check us out on the SiriusXM app and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. We'll preview Falcons, Bengals, and we'll give you my thoughts about what I'm looking for coming up on the show tomorrow. This has been Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked on Sports Atlanta.